Well, hello, Pack Housechurch's Happy Up Week. And because it's an up week, I just want to talk for a second about that particular syllable, because for a long time there's been an aspect of that syllable that we haven't been able really to enter into. Part of the up syllable is talking with people in your house church about who you are thinking about inviting to church who doesn't know Jesus yet. And I want to slide that back on your radar because church hasn't been open in the way that we grow accustomed to it being open over the course of our lives the last couple of years. If you wanted to invite somebody to church, you can invite them to your house to watch it in your living room or send them a YouTube link. Not quite the same. But now that we're open again, you can begin inviting people back to church. Hopefully God has placed one or two of these people on your heart. But I also want to go a little bit further and sort of share with you something that might fortify you a little bit, because maybe you're a little bit intimidated not just to bring somebody to church or invite them, but maybe even more so to do it like in week 9 of a series on the book of Revelation. Like you've never been to church before in your life. Oh, come with me. We're in the middle of this like immensely complex book with all these layers of imagery. You're going to love it. I can see why you might be hesitant, but let me share with you 2 stories of people that have come to church for the first time that have absolutely loved their experience. The first was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was a family that I knew from around town, and they showed up, and I was like, oh, when I saw them from the front, I was like, I wonder how this is going to go. But we always have in our minds as preachers at PAC and the people that are doing the service that this might be somebody's first time in church. So we're always trying to engage with how they might be feeling, keeping it from being too churchy, that kind of thing. So I wasn't too worried, but I was more curious. I went and talked with them afterwards, and I loved what the guy said. He just looked around in wonder and said, I've never been in a place like this in my whole life. And what he meant was he was starting to feel some of the presence of Jesus that we get to experience on those mornings. And then the second is a young man who just basically invited himself last Sunday. And I was thinking about his being there, like trying to explain probably the most complex section of Revelation to this kid who's never been in church his whole life. And I'm filming this actually before that Sunday, so in true transparency, I have no idea if he liked it or not, but let's say he did. But the main thing is that God seems to be stirring among these people. Neither of them were really invited, they just invited themselves. So this isn't really to let you off the hook necessarily. It's like, oh, Jesus is doing the work of inviting people to himself. I don't have to do anything. No, it just is to fortify you to say, Jesus has already got people leaning in his direction, thinking about coming to church. And maybe all you need to do is come along and say, hey, why don't you come with me? So let me encourage you to do that. Really dive into that in your house church this time. Talk about that part of the up syllable. Who are you praying for? Who might you invite? All right, let's talk about the actual sermon on Sunday. My question as we got into the seals, trumpets, and the bowls was the question that came out of the text, which was, who can stand? With all the horrible things happening in history, famine, war, persecution, violence, illness, depression, plague, who can actually stand it? Like, am I going to be able to stand it? And the answer to that question that we all ask at some point in our lives, like, how much longer can I stand this, is answered in the next chapter, chapter 7, with the very clear description of 2 types of people that can stand, or rather 2 types of beings. The question is asked, who can stand? The light bulb moment is these 2 beings can. First of all, angels can stand. They're not put out by the horsemen. They can hold back the 4 winds. The angels just do the bidding of God as if none of this stuff is really going on. So people, the beings that are aligned with God, they can stand. And further to that, those who are sealed with the mark of God can stand. And those are the Christians. They can stand up to the evil, not in the sense that they're never going to suffer. Christians get sick the same as other people. Christians get sad the same as other people. Christians suffer incredible losses the same as other people. There's no Pollyanna version of evil in Revelation that Christians are untouched by it. But what lets us stand is that though we feel the suffering of evil, we do not feel the God-separating effects of evil. We have been sealed by the Spirit to stand and to worship and to be held by God, even though the world is escalating in tensions and disaster, as in these seals, trumpets, and bowls. So my light bulb moment is, oh, the Christians can stand. Not that they get to stand apart from the suffering, no, they're right in the middle of it, but they do not lose out on the companionship of Jesus, and he will not let them go. My arrow, my personal conviction in all this, comes from some of the language at the end of chapter 7, where the Christians who are standing and sealed are described as those who have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. And that picture is one of continuing intimacy with Jesus. It's of a returning to the throne room. It's not of a passive, I gave my life to Jesus, now I'm good, but a continuing pursuit, a continuous purification and washing. And so we know this from our own lives, that there's a type of Christian who has sort of a token faith or a day circled on a calendar from years ago where they gave their life to Jesus, and they actually aren't able to stand against the powers and pressures in the world with a whole lot of strength. And then there's the other one who is continuously returning to the throne room, being fed and led by the shepherd and led by the Lamb, who is able to stand. So my conviction is to just not get complacent, which means I actually am hearing from the book of Revelation, getting awakened to not becoming somebody who is sedate or lethargic in my pursuit of Jesus, but somebody who is active and on edge, pursuing Jesus with zeal. Hopefully, Revelation is doing the same for you. Have fun talking about your question mark, light bulb, and arrow, and don't forget to talk about who you might want to invite to church in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody. Grace and peace.